Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show. The Handmaid's Tale is a show made by Hulu Entertainment, based on the famous 1970s book by Margaret Atwood, and it tells the story of, well, we're going to get to that. The show starts off with a young family driving away from some police. We don't know why, but they're trying to escape, and sadly, Dad's rubbish with roads, so they end up crashing. And Peggy from Mad Men grabs the wee daughter and she runs away while Dad says they'll catch up. But oh no, gunshots, and he's probably dead. So she keeps running and then hiding and then runs a bit and then she falls over. And then they find her and she has her daughter taken away before she gets donked over the head. And suddenly, we're later on, and it turns out her name's Offred, which, I mean, it isn't a real name, but now she's a handmaid and things have changed. And because of all this, she's been sent to live with Commander Shakespeare in Love and his wife, and she has to stay there with all the various other people who work in the house, like the cook and the gardener boy who fancies her a wee bit. And she goes off shopping with her frenemy Offglin. Offglin's another handmaid, and they meet other ones, and they have really stilted conversations, and they say lots of biblical things, and no one really trusts each other, and everyone might just be the sort who's going to dob you into the eyes, who are like secret police, and one word out of line, and you could end up getting killed or deported to like radioactive colonies of doom. And on the way home, they find dead folk who've been hung for being undesirables in the new regime, you know, like priests and abortionists and gay people. And seeing this makes Offred think back. And we find out that becoming a handmaid's kind of nasty. And even though her best pal Moira's there, they can't talk or, let it be known that they're actually friends. You see, handmaids are needed because women have gone awfully sterile in the future, and not many can actually have babies, but those that can have been rounded up and are getting doled out to rich and powerful families to act as broodmares. Yikes. And it's all framed as like a quasi-religious thing, and if you don't straight up comply with the crazy zealotry, then boom, you get tased and then you have your eye yanked off. And then if you don't help shame the other women, you get slapped round the head. Wait a minute, is that Margaret Atwood? I recognise that crazy hair. Yeah, you can't get past me, Mags. Wee cameo, nice. Anyway, back in the real time, Freddie-O has a wee bath and she's getting ready for her proper work as a handmaid. That's having the babies of Commander Shakespeare. And then after some ritually stuff, they get down to kind of creepy sex where the Commander seems to be trying to do the time warp dance while like Freddie lies on Mrs. Commander's lap. Clearly this is all a little bit uncomfortable and no one really seems to like the arrangement. And that night Freddie feels a bit ill and she runs outside in her nightie and gets spotted by the wee gardening laddie who likes her and uh-oh. But then the next day she isn't in trouble, so he didn't tell on her, so maybe she can trust him. Who knows? But anyway, he lets her have a wee in-joke and then they gang up on the cook for a laugh. And after that she has to go to the park with the other handmaids, where she bumps into an old pal who she chats to. And then the crazy pirate lady tells them that Moira has died. Oh no. And that totally shakes Offred to the core. And then it's revealed that the reason they're here is to punish a rapist who's thrown into the centre of them, and they all unleash all the anger and frustration on him. Literally, they beat him to death with their bare hands. The upside of this is that Offglin overheard Offred talking, and it turns out that all that piousness was just an act, because Offglin was as suspicious of Offred as Offred was of Offglin. Phew, try saying that 3 times fast. Anyway, just before they go home, Glennie tells her that someone in Offred's house is actually an undercover eye, and who could it be? Will we find out? Will we ever find her lost daughter? Are these the fundamental questions that are going to propel the audience through the whole show? Oh yeah, and her name's June.
My name is June.
So what did I think? Well, I have to be honest, I've read the original book of this when I was at school, and sometime round about that point I must have seen the original old film with Bob Duvall in it. But I do kind of vaguely know the story and the universe already, so I suspect a lot of other people do as well, and I don't think that's going to really affect my enjoyment of the show. But, it makes sense that you get that out up front. As far as the show's concerned, I'm really intrigued. I mean, it's done a great wee job of setting up this dark and scary situation where America's gone a bit nuts, and it is just America because they do mention that Canada is actually not part of all this. It's a really claustrophobic and harsh show, and we really do feel that as confined as Offred and June or Peggy or whatever you want to call her actually does. And for her part, I think Elizabeth Moss did a really, really good job with the role that's, has her right front and centre of the screen almost all of the show. And it's all like in close-ups and all wee expressions and glances, and she really conveys a huge amount without doing an awful lot. I mean, it's great stuff. It's also really good that we got the flashbacks to like with her and her family and her pals, and I really liked the bit where she was hiding from the bad guys behind the tree. And maybe it was just me, but I felt like that scene was a total homage to like Lord of the Rings, when Frodo and everyone's hiding from the tree from the ring wraiths. But anyway, I also loved how nobody in this situation is happy. I mean, Mrs. Commander seems awfully sad because she clearly feels threatened by Offred getting sexed up by her husband. And then there's big hints that, he's kind of offhand and dismissive of her. And the cook just looks pissed off at everybody. And the gardener seems kind of bored and lonely. And the handmaids, who aren't gone absolutely mental like the pirate one, they're just all in such a horrific situation that it doesn't really bear thinking about. Also, the way that they're made to kill that rapist kind of makes them complicit with the evil society. I mean, it's a kind of a clever way of letting them vent off steam about everything now and again. And that's assuming that he was even a rapist at all. I mean, who knows, right? He could be anybody. But I mean, I might just be overthinking things there. But I had that thought during that scene. I was like, wow, what if he was actually some guy trying to help and free them or doing something, fighting against the evil regime? But who knows? Anyway, I also love that the flashbacks gave us kind of a hint of the indoctrination that they're forced into. And I suspect that we're going to see more of that later on down the line. But that leads me to one of the problems I actually had with the show, because, I mean, the show's called Grumpy Opinions for a reason. But part of this is down to the way that the story comes originally from the book, and I'm hoping that the show does a better job of explaining how all this drastic change in society came about. Since, in the book, it kind of barely mentions it, glossing over it really quickly so the audience can deal with the ramifications rather than, like, why it actually happened. Now, the show does a lot of time jumping about in the first episode, because we see, like, June at college and then hang out with Moira a bit later, and apart from a wee chat about declining birth rates, we don't really get any idea about how society is starting to turn all weird and crazy and religious. And I mean, that's a slight issue, but it's still one that I feel is kind of important to the ongoing story of the show and the way that it all pans out. Another issue, and this one might be a bit more controversial, is that there's a strange reference at one point that felt really clunky in the middle of the show, where it mentions that when June was at college, she's writing a paper on sexual assault in college campus. Now, for me, this totally just like clunked in my head because I thought, wow, that seems like a very much a topical reference to throw in, but it seems a bit dated because that whole business, I mean, the whole Steubenville thing was all like 2013, 2014. I mean, we're in 2018 now. Now, I know the show came out last year, but even then, it maybe feels like it was a little bit of a reference that's kind of a bit dated at this point, and it feels like it's throwing it in just to have it thrown in there to say, yeah, we're aware of these things. I mean, that could just be me, but I kind of felt like it drew me out of that scene a little bit, more because they didn't really make anything of it, which I felt like they kind of should, considering the whole show was about her being basically imprisoned and raped until she's pregnant by like this guy. It's a serious topic, and I feel like dropping in that as what felt like nothing more than window dressing really wasn't that great an idea. And to be honest, that's really the extent of my complaints about this episode. I mean, an awful lot of this first episode has been scene setting and kind of making you understand the universe that the story's going to take place in. I mean, it does have a slight piloty feel about it, and that's not a complaint. I mean, there's no gripe in there. I mean, that's exactly how a first episode should really be: set the scene, introduce you to the main characters, and set up the main struggle and main arc of the story. And I think this show has huge amounts of potential, and I love the aesthetic, the acting, cinematography, and the book itself is a classic. So, I mean, hopefully the show's going to continue to impress me. So anyway, if this is your first visit to the channel, don't be shy, give me a wee subscribe if you enjoyed it, follow me on the Twitters and things, and feel free to share this video with pals on your social media and stuff. Until next time, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions.